Started. So, welcome once again to the Gathering the Roll for February 16th, 2018. So, it's an exciting week of various news from the tabletop world, and we're going to dive right into it rather than delay anymore. And of course, where we always start with our tabletop news, we started our CCG binder. And, of course, starting with that is Magic the Gathering. So we only have a tournament to talk about this week in our Magic the Gathering news. Grand Prix Lyon. So this is a... Lyon, France? Yes, France. Sorry about that. I had to remember. So it's a modern event that you can go to now. That's the main event. It is going to be... happening over this weekend, so things are beginning in effect today technically, so you might still be able to pre-register for the rest of the weekend stuff, and the modern switches aren't going into effect until February 19th, which is something we'll talk a little bit about on discussing tabletop, which is not something I want to dive into now. It's just that there has been changes in the banned and revised that are not going into effect for this tournament, if you are ending up going to participate. So, if you are in France, I'm looking to pre-registering now and joining in and finding out if you can join. So, alright, let's move on though, because we do have a bunch of things in our RPG bookshelf that we want to talk about. And first off is a new Unearthed Arcana from Dungeons & Dragons, Into the Wild. So this is effectively, once again, an Unearthed Arcana, which is an unofficial material that they are providing, that they are effectively playtesting. So if you are a fan of D&D, want to check out what they've been working on and see if it works in some of your games, test it out, learn about it, that sort of thing, you can check it out now. And this one in particular is very good for our DMs, because it's all about, well, traveling in the wild. It's about navigation, activities in the wild, random encounters, mapping out wildernesses. That can be both on your PC sides and your own side as a DMG, talking about the tactical various terrains. They do give some sample region of the Moon Hills, which shows off the kind of things that they are designing in this set of information, and how you're going to be able to use that kind of stuff in your game. So you can check out what their sample is, get an idea of how you would want to build it yourself, and then build in your own various wilderness-based terrains of forest, swamps, whatever, hills, whatever kind of wilderness you're going to have your PCs explore, you can have it. And they're doing the very important kind of wilderness phases of destination activities and what's going on, of course, with travel. But let's move right along now, because other than Unearthed Arcana and D&D, we do have some Pathfinder news. And of course, we have Starship decks for Pathfinder. Now, this is an interesting one, because this is not for Starfinder. This is for Pathfinder. This is if your player characters are exploring a strange place of technology, sort of like an Atlantean kind of place, or maybe they've been kidnapped by aliens, that your basic Pathfinder characters are encountering, well, strange starships and aliens and things. And this has 18 crafted map tiles with an arcane workshop, escape pods, flight hangar, medical bay, starship bridge, and turbo lifts, all included. So this is all about your players, your basically normal Pathfinder players, exploring a strange starship. And whatever reason they got them there, well, that's going to be entirely up to you. But they're there, and they're exploring it. Moving right along, we have the Bestiary Bestiary 6 box. If you have missed out, I've talked about pawn boxes in the past, especially on discussing tabletop. And pawn boxes are... Oh, wait. My mic is working? My mic is working. Sorry, for a second there I thought my mic wasn't working, but no, that was my desktop audio. And then the last week with my mic was not working, I am a little watching that closely now, so sorry about that. Anyway, pawn boxes are effectively small setup of almost miniatures, except they are little cardboard printouts you can put on little plastic things that allow you to effectively take the place of miniatures that have images of all the things in the bestiary boxes. It's a way of effectively having cheap miniatures. That's a great way of saying it. It's replacing miniatures with something a little cheaper. It's not cheap, like, I mean, like, it's more cost effective. The print edition is still $45, but this is over 300 pawns you can use, all of which are from the Bestiary 6, allowing you to add in the various creatures from that book into your monsters, with over 200 distinctive creatures images on these pawns. So if you can't afford a lot of miniatures and you want something really cool, this is definitely for you to check out and possibly get for yourself, to have up to huge creatures available to you to add into your adventures. Bestiary Box 6 is available. Let's move right along, because we do have some Starfinder news. The adventure path of the Dead Suns, the 4th adventure, is out, The Ruined Clouds. So this is, of course, for your 7th level Starfinder characters. And it's your characters on the heels of the Devourer cult. You're going to a distant, uncharted star system. You're finding the ruins of an ancient alien city floating in a gas giant. And you're going to explore those regions, encounter what's left over, the descendants of these places that once had their own super weapons. And it's going to be legends, superstition, and these are going to be like primitive, horrible folks that you're going to have to deal with while trying to unlock their ancestors' secret super weapons, which possibly could help you fight in your mission against the Cult of the Devourer. So it's available now if you are continuing on the first of the Starfinder adventure paths. Let's move right along now, because guess what? Hey, there's a Ponyfinder out. Ponyfinder Bellick. It's a city dominated by doppelgangers. So it's not really a nice place to visit. Kinda, probably not. Because you're never sure if you're interacting with an actual person or a doppelganger. And this gives you some rules on detailing the strange city, new spells, traits, other classes, and you can pick it up for your Ponyfinder games now. It's compatible with both Ponyfinder and 5th edition and Pathfinder. So they are leaving it open that you could use it with other D20 role-playing game systems if you just want to use a city of, well, doppelgangers. That's available now. Alright, in GURPS, we got some GURPS news. Hey, look at this. Steve Jackson Games has released Banestorm, because they've done countless supplements over the years. And they're introducing you to the land of Yurth, a magical realm of varied races and monsters, including people snatched from Earth and other worlds during a cataclysm called the Banestorm, where there's whole villages, diverse cultures from places like medieval England, France, Germany, and the Far East. And these humans are struggling together with dwarves, elves, and other races. And things like the Crusades aren't ancient history. They were something that had been going on. So there's a lot of religious tension, even on going to this strange new world. And they can journey off from their villages to the windswept plains of the Nomad Lands, face the nomadic warriors there. There's a lot of things going on in this place. And you can even go between the various groups. Like you can go to places where you find Nordic warriors, other places where you find Muslim lands, all in this strange world that is a combination of many other sort of groups throughout, well, I would say throughout time, throughout the areas of history, all thrown together in one. So now if you want to add this interesting area to your GURPS 3rd edition games, especially the fantasy or fantasy adventures ones, it's available now for your GURPS. You can get it. Alright. 100 Oddities for an Egyptian Tomb. I've talked a little bit about the 100 Oddities series before, but this is yet another one that's come out. And the 100 Oddities series are all about basic information that you can use for any of your role-playing game systems. It's not meant to be for a particular system. It's meant to just be suggestions for very strange things and unique features you can add into, of course, your whatever it is that it's 100 Oddities for. And in this case, it's an Egyptian tomb, or a tomb that has a theme similar to an Egyptian, because if you look into worlds like D&D and the Forgotten Realms and Pathfinder and Galarian, there are places that are very Egyptian feeling, so you can add in similar thing. You can use those things in sort of places like that, or you could just actually go to an Egyptian tomb, and many of the more modern or even futuristic games has options for this. And Egyptian tombs, you know, you have a lot of things in them. Maybe there's elaborate traps, there's golden riches, mummies, elaborate bas-reliefs, things about curses or afterlife. There's a lot of things that can be in them, and this is basically giving you a thematic approach to encounters, items, creatures that would be within these in areas of dunes and sandstorms, and sandstorms. And, you know, you're diving into this tomb, exploring it, and finding out. And this helps you with cutting down a lot of research that you might have into this type of tune if you're designing one. It's meant to give you a heads up on, here's a lot of things that you might want to add in that feel that they are appropriate, or are appropriate to the kind of thing you'd find in an Egyptian tune. It's available now. Let's move right along from our RPG bookshelf to, of course, our card game desk, because we have a couple of things for our card game desk, and starting with Elder Sign Omens of the Faro expansion. Now, I am a big fan of Elder Sign. I am not going to deny that, and I have gotten pretty much all the expansions, and this is the latest one that's been released. Now we're focusing on an area of desert. As we were just talking about desert, hey, guess what? We're talking about more. We're now talking about the strangely horrors that are chittering around the yawning crypts. Your entrance of the lightless pyramid is swarming with all the minions of Nephrin Ka. And thankfully their attention is elsewhere, so you can dive into the pyramid and explore it. Now, of course, the starting card for this one is Cairo, because you're in Egypt. And it's all about exploring this area around the place, learning about the various ancient powers, going on an expedition deep inside, revealing what's going on with the Dark Pharaoh, and stopping the, well, various possibly ancient ones, because there are 3 new ancient ones for this one, along with some new Mythos cards, and 6 new investigators and 4 new allies that you can use for your adventures, including Nyarlathotep. I'm probably butchering it, but it is another one of the crawling chaos, basically. So we're even getting the crawling chaos in our ancient ones for our Elder Signs games. And so it's all about stopping the Dark Pharaoh and stopping the arrival of an ancient horror to your world. It's available now if you're interested in this one. Let's move right along to the other card game news in our card game desk. We have Lord of the Rings, the card game, The Crossing of Poros, an adventure pack. It's the 6th and final adventure path in the Hardrum cycle of Lord of the Rings card game. It began, of course, with the Sands of Hardrum and has been going on throughout the entire cycle. This adventure pack asks you 60 cards, 3 copies of 20 distinct cards, including a new hero card, an unlikely ally, to expand your adventures in Middle-earth. It's filled with orcs, traps, and enemies from Harad, and it kind of brings the Hardrum cycle to a thrilling conclusion. And it's all about the road to Gondor at this point in time. The flight to Gondor.
Hello.
Hi, I'm on my show right now, okay?
Nope, you're a veterinarian.
Okay, I'll look after your horse later.
No, you need him now.
Nope. Aurora.
The need.
Aurora. You're interrupting me now. I'm going to tell you one more time. I will play with you later. But if I have to keep speaking now, you're getting a timeout. Now she's crying. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, it's available now. Why don't we move on, though, because next up we only have some Kickstarter display. We have a couple of Kickstarters we want to talk about. Let's move on to, of course, Page Quest Season 1. It's a PNP adventure that you can be looking into. Oh, my God. Again, apologies a lot. So, this Kickstarter is funded. It's reached about nearly twice its funding that it was looking for. It's got 11 days to go. It is a adventure based on party against party, of course, PNP. So, it's a solo PNP adventure with deep story and adventure. RPGs often require a lot of space. You get a big table for everything, and that's where this one comes in handy, which you don't only need a little bit of space to play. And this is the first season, of course, up on Kickstarter. It's both games. It's basically combining some information from a couple of the games they have, and both games are built on some similar mechanics, and they provide you something different. What's an easier way to describe this off the top of my head? Not very easy. it's their dice and board product where they're find 2 titles under a single brand. The Page Quest series, which are A4 Quest and Page Quest Mythical Artifacts, and they're basically kind of putting them together into Page Quest Mythical Artifacts, which is what we're looking at under this one here. Page Quest Season 1, Mythical Artifacts. So you can see how they're kind of combining information that they had previously had before into one adventure that you're going to be looking at and playing with, now available. I'll just move on before I continue to struggle through this one a little bit here. So the Hidden Halls of Hazakor. Alright. This one is nearly funded. It's only a couple $100 away from being funded. 5 days to go, so it's pretty close. And we all remember our kind of first RPGs, and this is the Hidden Halls of Hazakor, a new 5th edition adventure, is up on Kickstarter. And it's more for just new players, it's for new dungeon masters as well. That's what it's basically designed for, both new players and new dungeon masters. It's fully illustrated, 64-page starter adventure for the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, with that focus on you being a new DM to help you out. Now, it's really good for younger age DMs. They're aiming that if you're age, even 12 or up, you should be able to dive into it very easily and get an idea of how it works. It's friendly, straightforward, demonstrates some good ways of being, well, a good fantasy RPG adventure is put together, how it's designed, talks about some of the tricks and knowledges that you might learn you need as a DM, and helps you gain some experience with running games. Which aren't always something you can pick up as a young player in the DM's chair for the first time. And that's why this is meant to help you out as a introductory for even new DMs. So it's up now. As I said, they're pretty close to being funded. They have a very interesting art style, as you hear, very creative, very whimsical. And they do have a couple of stretch goals in case they, end up getting to that at the end of it. Animal Ailments. The party game is up on Kickstarter. Oh. Alright, so this one, it's about halfway funded with 25 days to go. It's actually a little over half. Good for them. There's a lot of party games. And sometimes you want something like... There's like something more... You want some different charades, something a little bit more exciting. And this is you act out ridiculous combinations of hilarious family-friendly party game. Something like Gorilla with a Brain Feast, a Hyena with a Hangover. So it's designed for 3+ players, suitable for age up, and the game takes around 30 minutes to play, and easily is basically livening up any kind of party. You simply take a red card and a green card. You mime the animal first, and then your ailment with no speaking. You guess the animal's ailment together to win the points. You steal cards from your friends through additional mimes, special power-ups, and penalty cards. Create a competitive yet simple gameplay that anyone can get involved in, and it's made just to draw anyone in. So that's basically good for younger people, easy to learn, good for large or smaller groups alike. So it's good for 3 players, it's good for a lot of players. And it's those combinations of like trying to act out a, Carsick kangaroo or that gorilla with the brain freeze that I was talking about, and trying to put them together for someone to figure them all out. It is, of course, available now. Okay, so we got a new one. Sonic the Hedgehog Battle Racers is up on Kickstarter. Alright, this one's funded. It's hit its goal with 14 days to go. It's a pre-painted miniatures board racing game for 2 to 5 players, where you race against batniks and bosses, collect rings, and a sprint to the finish. It's about 125% of its goal, so we're about at with this one. So it's definitely, you choose your racer, you choose your route, and you fight your way to the finish, avoiding opposing racers and dangerous obstacles. You have to make sure to control your speed like any kind of racing kind of board game, use any kind of abilities, activate special powers, and collect as many rings as you can go while trying to get to the finish line in the quickest amount of time. So, they of course have a number of characters. You have, Tails, Sonic, Knuckle, Amy are the main kind of characters you have for your thing. They have a lot of interesting miniatures and stuff. They've unlocked a token bag, adding Shadow Blaze and other characters are coming with stretch goals. Plastic rings are eventual stretch goals. Other things like a couple other characters. So there's a lot more to it as they go. There's also a couple of expansions. Infinite Metropolis, Metal Sonic, and a couple of large racer expansions also. So it's up on Kickstarter now. And if you're a fan of racing games, you're a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, this might be the one for you. You can check it out. It is a group that's worked on another licensed brand before, and they are a subsidiary of 7Seas. So they're got it up right now. So if you're interested in this one, I'd say check it out. Let's move right on to Dungeon Solitaire, The Devil's Playground. Alright, so this one is funded. It has reached over 300% of its funding. It didn't have a whole lot of funding to it, but that's fine. It's a dungeon delving adventure game with customized illustrated cards. 12 days to go are left on this one. And sometimes you might be the only gamer around. That happens, you know. Maybe other people couldn't happen. Something won't happen. Like you want to play a game on your own, and that's where solitaire games come in. And there's plenty of games, things like Arkham Horror, Fortune and Glory, that you can play on your own. But because they're better with more players, it's one of those things, and that's why an actual solitaire game comes in handy. And here's where a good one is: Dungeon Solitaire. It's a standalone expansion for the Devil's Playground that's up in Kickstarter. So it's a standalone that is used as an expansion deck for the Dungeon Solitaire Labyrinth of Souls tarot card game. That could also be used as an expansion for that. You delve in the deepest corner of the darkest dungeon with the Devil's Playground standalone game, or you can use the Devil's Playground cards and rulebooks to ban your Labyrinth of Scroll games in various ways. Experience new challenges and unexpected surprises as you delve into it. Just to give you an idea about it there. So let me check if they have any stretch goals, because I love talking about those. They do have a number of stretch goals. They have hit a bunch of them. They have hit the Eternal Conflict Dungeon War expansion. The next expansion they have is a 2-player cooperative version of it. So if you actually do have a friend and want to try it, and they do have one that they're planning on 14,000, which they'll see if you get to them. Well, we can see in the future. So Dungeon Solitaire, is available now. If you want to check it out on Kickstarter. It's funded. You can check it out if you want to get into something that's definitely sure. Alright, so we have Fields of Agincourt, a competitive tile-laying board game. So this one is 90 days to go. It's about 20% funded. It's phasing on one of the most iconic battles of Western Civilcourt, Agincourt, which saw King Henry V beat French on the Fields of Agincourt. So now you can bring the moment in history to your tabletop with this. It's a tile laying, positioning, terrain, and plague. It's all about that thing. Positioning with the tile laying, terrain, and plague. So it is a combative tile placement game that features control, tile drafting, tile stacking, and of course, as I said, the plague. It's inspired by the Battle of Agincourt, but it's not meant to be a historic simulation because you don't know who's actually going to win. Players will be using the positioning and terrain and tactics to win the day, kind of like Henry did when he beat the French. The map will form as the game is played, each player fighting for position in the final battle. The goal of the game is to defeat your enemies and claim the victory over the Fields of Agincourt. Alright, it's meant for 2 to 5 players, 8+ people, 30 to 60 minutes to play. So it's up on Kickstarter now. As I said, it's reached about 20%. It's got a whole bunch of different tiles, wooden components, all kinds of player components. You can check it out now and see if you're interested in supporting this Kickstarter and seeing if they can get to their goals. Let's talk about Planettopia! I had to say that, but it's exactly that way. So Planettopia is a deck and pattern building game for 2 to 5 players that it is not quite funded. They've reached about 90% of their funding goal with 17 days to go, so they are definitely well on their way to finally getting that funding. it's... Ow. There's billions of stars in the galaxy, billions of planets, and in Planettopia you take the role of one of those planets, a newly formed, ready to harbor life. With all the planets available, you have to work hard to attract life to you. And, your planet's pleading for life. You know, and that's basically the easy way to think about it. Planets competing for life. You want the planet to be most beautiful, most welcoming in the galaxy, and intend to prove it to anyone that would kind of come and check you out. Attract the maximum number of life forms to your planet, and by respecting the law of gravity, make sure they arrange your living species as well as possible in order to score maximum prestige points. So not only do you have to attract creatures, you have to kind of get them on your planet in the best way that scores the most prestige. And then you're the most prosperous planet in the entire galaxy. It's basically a space deck building game where each player embodies the planet, optimizes their hand, and achieves the most interesting combinations to win. Play game flows talk-wise, each player taking a turn, and they have a number of options, which are taking Cosmos cards, playing cards, recovering cards, and then you have mandatory options. You have those popular mandatory ones. You have some optional ones, which is Animize, which is kind of discarding cards, residents. You make a combo. There's a lot of things. The game is played as many rounds as necessary to score 25 prestige points. And then you're the most prestigious planet in the entire galaxy. And as I said, it's over 90% of the way done their goals, so they might definitely well finish it. And they have a couple of stretch goals planned out, should they reach that then. Which they most likely could reach at least one of them on their way. Alright, we have a couple more to talk about, and I want to talk about Cthulhu Tactics. Because guess what? This is in fact a video game on Kickstarter based upon the Cthulhu role-playing game, which I have talked about before. So someone's bringing the action strategy RPG to a game. It is funded for what they wanted to get. Their goal was to get about 14,000. They've hit 20,000 with 15 days to go. And Modifius has been teaming up with some groups to bring you this to your basically screens. It's an alternate history, World War II, where Cthulhu mystic creatures come flooding into our own world, and it's getting a full digital treatment. They're looking to bring new items from the tabletop game as well, a lot more stuff to it. It basically, you take the role of a band of allied heroes fighting against a secret war against the Nazi Black Sun and their rivals, Nachtwolves. The Nazi factions have turned to the ancient powerful mythos, of course, to win the war. And you're trying to prevent them from using those. And they're basically each on the verge of unleashing terrible weapons on the allied forces. It's up to you to stop them. They have an aim for the fourth quarter of 2018 for release when the Kickstarter is done. The core game is going to be amazing turn-based strategy RPG, is what they're aiming for, with the right mix of tactics, story, and action. So it is a turn-based strategy RPG that they're bringing to us using this. That's the important thing to talk about here. And this was to get some word out, some extra funding. They have hit a couple of their unlocks, which are some more characters. And they have a couple more stretch goals to go that they currently have on their list. And so, yep. Just wanted to make that one clear. Last thing I want to talk about is Hate. Guess what? Hate got funded. I just want to let everybody know that I talked about this previously, earlier on, like this month, last month. They have a late pledge available for those of you that didn't support it. You know, they hit their stretch goals by a good amount. But in case that you hadn't had a chance, you know, even if you want to add $1 in, you can still late pledge with them. They have a $120 pledge, which is like the core box, a lot of the tribes, the upgraded plastic tokens, the extra components, a couple extra tribes, mercenary figures, all of that comes together as part of their late pledge. So it is a $120 late pledge with a lot of the materials that they had from their original Kickstarter. You can compare it to what they said on their Kickstarter page just to get an idea of what you may or may not have missed by unfortunately getting to this late pledge, but you can see it's available now if you're interested. And all late pledges come with the same stretch goals as the regular pledges, is the important thing that they note right away. So any kind of stretch goals that you got with the regular pledge, you will get here. So, all right. So, that's it for the news this week. Thanks to everyone who stopped by and joined me to check out what was going on in the news, tabletop news for this week. I'll, of course, hopefully be back to my regular schedule on Tuesday next week. The schedule is getting updated. I will let everyone know the exact time I'll be showing up. The current plan for Tuesdays is 6 to 7. We'll be gathering the roll. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, about that hour opening. Granted, just like today, it might not take an hour, but I always want to give myself that extra time in case it's a really big news week. I'll be back then in order to have the updated schedule. I'll be back, of course, tomorrow for the morning stream and for discussing tabletop. As for discussing tabletop, we will discuss these stories and more in more detail with me, Worm, and Joe. If you have any questions about that, you can always leave it in the comments here when I put it up on YouTube today, or let me know in chat, or you can contact me at my Twitter or at my Discord, both which are linked below, both on Twitch and YouTube. Or you can always email us at discussingtabletop@yahoo.com and give us a question there. Based on any of these topics here, or just questions about tabletop in general that you might have to ask and you want to learn about. Any kind of tabletop, just ask us. We'll take any kind of questions. But anyway, I will be back next week. Thank you all for joining, and thank you all for being here.